zone.
I would have just gone, if God was real, why am I an atheist? What is up, and welcome back to another hashtag Wireless Family podcast. I'm joined once again by shipmate Izaak.
Thank you, I think.
You're welcome. Now, today, we're going down a road often travelled by many people on their own, but not many people would confess to engaging in these sort of conversations often. They're not bad conversations, but they're conversations where people become very opinionated.
Yep.
So what Izaak and I are going to do today is throw ourselves under the bus a little bit, talk about these sort of topics. And the reason we wanted to do this is because, well, the reason I posed that we do this is because we're both very deep and logical thinkers. But
Don't look like it, I know.
well, that's the thing. People, I know I certainly make myself look like the child and the idiot on camera a lot, because that's just a persona that I've seemed to adapt to or put on myself. I don't know why I did that, but I did. And I've ran with it ever since. And you're a very closed book most of the time, so not many people actually know you very well at all.
Yeah.
So this is a bit of a chance for people to see a different side of yourself and I that they normally wouldn't see, which is... How do you feel going into this?
I don't know, I'm a bit nervous, but I'll get a bit more comfortable as the video goes on.
Yeah, okay, we'll ease into the video. So it's been about a month and a half since we've done a pod.
Yeah.
What's happened in that time? What have you been up to, mate?
Not much at all, just keeping social distance, staying at home, quarantine, saving the world and all that, as you do.
Doing your part, saving the world?
Yep.
Beautiful. We're going to move into something that is a little bit, as I said, a little bit left of field. We're going to start off with beliefs and what it is that helps us believe something, what it is that helps us understand a truancy to something that we may have heard about. So, for example, is there anything... Well, I know I'm throwing you under the bus a little bit here, but is there anything a bit left of field that you believe in?
We'll probably go aliens.
Aliens?
Probably the one that I don't think many people know I believe in.
Okay. Aliens is one of those funny ones where I think everyone wants to believe in aliens, but
Yeah.
what is it that helps you believe that that's real? What is it that... So, let's backpedal even further again. What is it that you need before you can believe something?
The first thing I need would be science, and if science doesn't have the answer, it would be statistics, because normally statistics lead into science.
Yep.
So science, we may not have the answers for aliens, but statistically we can't be the only living species on a planet in the solar system, in the galaxy. Solar system, galaxy, probably not.
Okay, which is a fair observation, and as I was saying to you yesterday when I sort of brought up this topic, I'm very much of the I need some very strong scientific proof. Obviously, I'm facts and figures driven as a person, just in general, but the kicker for me is, even though science may say there is a lot of times where you can pick and choose parts of a research database or something to back your claim, even if the research itself is opposed to that.
Yeah.
So for me, it's almost a seeing is believing kind of thing, and I know that's very cliche with aliens, but I need that first person account almost to be able to believe in something, just because I know that stats, figures, although they are true, can be shaped, if that makes sense.
Yeah, fully. I think the reason also that I guess I believe in aliens is because we haven't explored our own Earth yet. So how will we know the galaxy and all that? Because we haven't explored the ocean. We barely reached
3%.
Yeah, and we're still finding new species of things on different islands that we've been to. So, and it isn't that far fetched. At least in my opinion, it's not.
That is very fair. And do you think that then plays into anything that we've had in the terms of technological advances as well, given that the time frame of which we'll say conspiracy theories about aliens first became really popular, the mid 60s, that sort of era was when we technologically really started to make advances.
Technology definitely has I guess, as harms, seeing that we've lived so long on the planet, we've only discovered, Earth, and we're around it in such a short amount of time, probably say last 100 years when we really probably took note of it, and we've only just gone past our galaxy, our solar system.
Yep.
With what is it, like, just flights, rockets, trains, what do you call them, rovers, satellites,
all the works,
satellites.
All the works, really.
Yeah, so only the first we've gone human is the moon.
Yeah.
And so we can't just close the book on that one.
Well, no, and even the furthest, I haven't done any research into this, so this is what I'm physically aware of, is we've got rovers on Mars.
Yeah.
We've gone that far, but the furthest we've been able to see, we've only just really, in the last, say, 10 years, been able to see outside our own solar system.
Yeah.
And we cannot fathom possibly how vast everything is. There's no near estimate on how big everything is. We don't know if it ends, where it ends, it's very daunting almost to think that there is no limit to everything. Everything could be, as far as it can be at the end of the day.
How depressing would it be if we were actually the only, the living in all that?
It would be very...
probably not depressing is the best word, but it would just be very, daunting in a way.
I don't know how to describe the emotion I'm thinking. It's a very... It's... Okay. Say, for example, we're the only existing species, as we know species, humans to be. What is our responsibility moving forward? And do we need to move to new planets, learn to live different places?
Where we need to or not doesn't necessarily matter. It's more that we will do it anyway. Seeing just of how human history has taught us that we explore,
divide and conquer.
Try and get a more peaceful version of it, but it's pretty much the
divide
answer.
And conquer.
Yeah. So we don't necessarily need to more. It will happen eventually.
What you did then, unknowingly, and this is the reason I threw you under the bus, because I knew it would segue beautifully.
Yeah. Here you go.
Was you used the logic fallacy, Sir Izaak Newton.
What's that, Terence? What is logic fallacies?
So a logic fallacy is a simple way of explaining ways we use logic to determine outcomes and answers, or determine what is true and false. For example, I'm going to skip one and go to my favourite, which is the logical fallacy of false cause, which, to put it in its Latin term, and I just love saying this, post hoc ergo propter hoc, which pretty much translates to after this, therefore because of this. So it is saying that because B happened after A caused B, if that makes sense. But as we all know, when we put it in those sort of terms, that is more often than not the case. For example, I'll give an example of when it is true, however, just to show both sides of the story. So, for example, turning a light switch on and the light coming on. That is an example of where B is caused by A and does follow accordingly. Now, there are so many times, and this is why I love it, that it is not the case. But that is not the logic fallacy that we use every day.
No, it's not.
So we've got a few that we're going to go through and talk through, because we're going to call each other out on using them.
Yeah.
Now, we'll go the first one, ad hominem.
Which is, Terence, for those who don't know?
So the logical fallacy ad hominem is when you attack a person's character rather than argument. So, if we were having a conversation, it's often used by the person who is losing that conversation or argument, by the way. If we were having a conversation and I felt I was losing, you were making good points and I had nothing to rebuttal with, instead of rebuttaling your point, I would attack you as a person.
Yeah.
I would argue with you as a person and not on what we're talking about. I think everyone is guilty of doing this at some point.
I think the biggest example would be... should I go down that rabbit hole?
Go down that rabbit hole. We're in...
Donald Trump, probably the biggest one of that.
Yes. Yes, he is.
I mean, just have a look at pretty much any press conference, really. We get the answer he wasn't too happy about.
Yeah. It's a way of... We do it in a way of trying to regain control in the argument when we feel like we're losing it.
Yeah. It's the classic, I know you are, what am I type thing.
That's exactly what it is, to be fair. It is the I know you are, but what am I argument as a kid. It's just the adult version.
Yeah. And
it's nice to know that putting a name to it and an example shows that even as adults we don't change. We still do it.
Still a dickhead from way back.
Repping that from early. Alright, another one. Which, this one, you and I both... I'm going to say you and I both do this very often because we're both very pragmatic people. We're both politically minded.
Yeah. Definitely, yeah.
And both have very, to put it simply, lawyeristic traits in how we converse.
Yeah, fully. I'll agree with that.
So this logical fallacy is the loaded question. These are questions that implicate guilt or to put it, I'll put it even more simply actually. I'll trip up myself. A loaded question is a question with implications.
Yeah.
For example, instead of asking, say, the defendant, did you kill that man?
You would ask instead,
how did you feel when you killed that person? The question asks the same thing, but it implies that you are guilty. And that's the difference. The first question, there was no implication of you being guilty. It was a yes or no answer. The second question says that you are guilty and I want to know how you felt doing it.
Yeah.
Even though you may not be guilty, the question was still loaded and still implies that you are. How many times a day do you reckon you use that?
I don't actually use it that much, you think. I think you use it more than I do.
I would 100% agree with that, yeah.
I just stay quiet.
I do it to take the mickey most of the time. When do you think this can be used for good? Because it does have a lot of negative connotations around it.
It'll definitely be, like you said, as you use, for example, lawyer interrogation scenarios. That'll probably be where it's used, probably for, I don't think it would be good, but it'll probably be where it's most used at.
It would certainly be most used for that, because in this country you needed an admission of guilt for a charge to be laid.
Yeah.
So the best way to do that is ask loaded question after loaded question after loaded question until they crack.
Yeah.
Because if you keep asking those sort of questions, it is hard to keep up in your mind where the question is actually aimed and what it's implying to you.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to get an admission of guilt by asking a heap of loaded questions back to back. But that's why I'm intrigued to think, can we think of a scenario where the implication can be good? Because it's not often used that way. It can be, it factually can be used that way.
I can't think of it at the moment.
The only time I can think of it working in a positive is when the person on the other end has done something surprising to the person asking the question. So, how long did it take you to do the dishes today?
Yeah.
And you can turn around and go, 5 minutes actually. You go, you did the dishes, did you? That sort of thing.
Or when you're asking...
That wasn't implying that Izaak doesn't do the dishes.
Mate, the cook doesn't do dishes, that's why.
That's fair.
Yeah. That one.
Neither does the patron at the restaurant, though.
Yeah, to be fair. I had one, but I forgot now.
Yeah, you got sidetracked.
Distracted.
Alright, we'll move on to another one. So the old anecdotal fallacy.
Which is what some people might not know what that is.
All right, no, fair enough.
Let them.
So we'll use this as an example. Giving anecdotal evidence. I know he said a bad word. Giving anecdotal evidence means giving almost personal experience as evidence. So anecdotal evidence for aliens being real is I saw an alien in my room.
Yeah.
Giving anecdotal evidence that Trump is a dickhead is look at America. Let's both take a swig of water.
I wish there was water.
Let's just shoot up disinfectant for a minute.
Yeah.
But that is an example of anecdotal evidence. Now, this one, it's a lot easier to see anecdotal evidence being used for good and bad because the anecdote itself doesn't imply good or bad. It can be for anything. How many times, what sort of situation do you see yourself using this most in?
Probably when someone's had, hang on, let me think before I speak.
Yep. And the reason we're going through these is because we're not just saying, look at all these, look at how smart we are. It's a way of showing everyone that these are things that we do every day, and it's almost a little bit of a just listen to yourself when you're making an argument next time. Just because these will come up in these will come up in conversations where you're having a discussion. Every time you have a discussion from now on, just check yourself and see if you're doing any of these, because I could almost put money on it that you will be doing these 90% of the time, at least one of these, because it's just a way that we use logic. It's how we process information and use logic to get an answer out of our mouths, pretty much. Like Isaac's struggling to do right now.
I'm waiting for you to finish, mate.
Yeah, go on. So an example of anecdotal evidence.
It's probably when you're talking to someone about personal experiences, like when someone says, bear with me, right? Bear with me. Like when someone's feeling like down or something and they feel like the world's against them.
Continue.
You say like, hey man, I know how you feel, or I can see where you're coming from because this happened to me.
Yeah.
So you try and make them feel comfortable in that you come from a place of understanding.
Yep.
Type thing. It's probably why I use it more than any other
Yeah.
in my life.
And that's a very good example of good anecdote. A good anecdotal fallacy is using it in that way of connecting with someone and saying, you're not alone, I've been through the same sort of thing. And then it's even better at the other end when you can go, you know, this is what worked for me, maybe it's worth a try yourself, you know. It's a way of, I didn't think of it that way before, it's almost a way of bonding, actually.
Yeah, it would be.
That's quite cute. Look at us bonding.
Who would have thought, eh? Who would have thought? Look at us.
Alright, so the next one, and when we discussed this one last night, your immediate answer was Trump.
Yeah.
So the next one is the straw man fallacy. That is misrepresenting someone's argument to make it easier to attack them. And I'll give an example. This is most seen by politicians, it's probably fair to say.
No, you'll probably see it the most, politicians will be the biggest one for you.
Yep. So we'll use, for example, there has been a budget surplus and more funding given to, let's say, childcare sector.
Someone think of the children.
The opposing politician leader might go, it's disgusting to see that you're cutting funding from, let's say, the military to fund childcare. It's just a way of misrepresenting someone else's argument in a way that makes it easier to attack them.
Yeah.
It's a very backhand, left of field, sly, conniving sort of way of doing it, but it works. Because it's making yourself look better and making them look worse at the exact same time. So the last one we wanted to talk about was the burden of proof. This is the most fun, most creative one. This is the one that brings the most joy to people when they use it, because it's often absolutely obscene and insane. So this is where you make what is often a very bold claim, knowing that the person you are arguing against cannot disprove you at that point and therefore cannot discount what you are claiming. For example, I could say right now, my car is on the moon, and because you cannot prove it right now, you cannot deny it to not be true.
Yeah. Yeah, can you think of any other situations where that would be used?
I feel it's very much we use the term a schoolyard argument, in the way that it's with things that are almost just dumb.
Yeah.
I don't think this is ever used by someone who's being 100% serious at the time, because there's almost a little bit of, it's something, it feels like an argument you make knowing that the argument you're making is just to annoy the person because they can't disprove you.
Yeah.
It's a smart ass argument, I feel. And if you've got a different opinion in the comments, please be free to let me know. But I just get that sense that I don't think I can remember any time this has been used and the person wasn't just being a smart ass. We're going to move into social experiments that have been conducted by proper scientists. This is proper research data we're analysing right now. But they all have a bit of a link to what we've previously spoken about. So, Izaak, do you want to kick us off with what your social experiment is?
My one's called the Stanford Prison Experiment. The Stanford Prison Experiment was an attempt to investigate the psychological effects of perceived power, focusing on the struggle between prisoners and prison officers. It was conducted at Stanford University in 1971 by a research group led by psychological professor Philip, and using college students as subjects. Philip aimed the test to
Hypothesize?
Yeah. Philip aimed the test to hypothesize that the inherent personality traits of prisoners and guards are the chief cause of abuse behaviour in prison. Participants were randomly assigned to either the role of prisoner or guard, and the prisoners were treated like everyday criminal, and the prison guards, were treated like guards and that. Within the hours of beginning the experiment, those who were assigned as guards began to harass the prisoners. The prisoners were taunted with insults, given pointless and boring tasks. They were generally dishumanized in less than a week. Some of the guards had become sadistic, escalating their abuse of prisoners as the days passed. The prisoners had broken down emotionally and physically. The result of the study concluded that people conform to social roles they expected to play, especially if the roles are strongly stereotyped as them of prison guards. It seemed that it was that the situation, not the individual personalities, that had caused the guards' brutal and sadistic behaviour. None of the participants who had became guards had shown signs of sadistic personality type before beginning of the study. So essentially, the study proves that people will behave in social situations as they're given.
As they're expected to.
Yeah, expected to, sorry.
Which I mentioned at the very start of the video that I've become a child on this channel.
Yeah.
And that's just what I play now. That is something that I now do just because it's what people expect to see.
Yeah.
Now, this happens in everyday life. Do we want to go there?
If you want to. Captain.
We'll very briefly touch on examples of this happening in everyday life. And I think right now, as of the time of this video going up, is blatantly obvious there is one blaring example of this happening in real life in America right now. That is the tragic death of George Floyd. That is an extreme example of someone who has never shown any sadistic behaviour in their life, letting power and the role they're assumed to play get to their head and play that role in a way that is exceeding what is needed. We won't go any further into that, but it is one big example of how this actually happens in real life.
Yeah.
We also see this, to peel it back to a more lighter tone, at primary schools.
Yeah.
I'll use an example of when I was teaching. There was a prep teacher who filled in and taught grade 6 for a day. she treated the grade 6s
As preps.
as preps, and it was hilarious to see someone treat a bunch of 10, 11, 12-year-olds like they couldn't read and write. It was hilarious, and it took her the entire day to realise she was actually doing it, because it's just her role as a teacher. That's what she does. She's a prep teacher. That's the role she plays. It becomes so ingrained in our being that we just do it, and we don't realise we're just doing it. It takes a lot to be able to step back and see that you're doing it, and it takes even more to realise you're doing it and then change. I would be intrigued to see how long after that experiment was performed, how long after it took those the students who were given the role as guards to revert back to their normal beings, or if they did at all.
Or stayed with them.
Whether that did in fact stay with them, not obviously in such a big manner,
Yeah.
but whether that just stayed in their mind a little bit. I would be intrigued to find that out.
You briefly talked about you on YouTube play the child.
Yes.
Well, that in real life, what do you reckon you play?
I play many different roles in real life.
Okay, yeah.
No one person would say I play the same role, because I play a different role for every person I encounter.
Okay, what do you find? What do you catch yourself playing the most? What roles do you reckon you go? Oh, okay, I play that one a lot more. Sometimes not more. What ones you found you play?
It very heavily depends on who I'm with. So, for example, I'll put it in the way of everyone who works in customer service has a customer service voice.
Yeah.
I do the same thing, but for everyone in my life. When I'm talking with good mate of the channel, Ben, I'm a nerd and a family man. Given that Ben's daughter is my goddaughter, I become a father figure sort of thing and create that own energy for myself for his other daughter and son. When I talk to Ben, I geek out and go all nerdy.
Yeah.
When I talk to you, I often get political and get very straight edged. When I talk to family, I'm the class clown, because that's sort of the role that I learnt to have as a child, to sort of bring some enjoyment and entertainment to the family, because when we're doing it tough, there wasn't often much to laugh about. So it just depends on who I'm with, really. More often than not, I would probably say I play the class clown.
Yeah. I'll agree with that.
But you also have probably seen more sides of me than most other people have.
Yeah.
In those roles I play.
Lucky me.
What about you?
Probably the quiet one, I reckon.
You play that exceedingly well. Exceedingly well.
I didn't have a choice, man. My sister was the loud one in the family growing up, so I was like, oh, I'll take it into the back seat to it.
Yep.
It's worked out alright so far.
Speaking of back seats, when are you getting your car back? Because your sister's got that back seat too.
I'm a nice brother, alright? I'll get it when I have it.
Alright, we'll move on to... Well, did you have anything else to raise on the point?
No, I think it's interesting that that people, you know, go into social
situations.
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. I was thinking like social job. No, that's not the word. Yeah, social situations and play it up, especially ones that have major stereotypes to it.
Alrighty. Alright, so I'll move on to my social experiment now. It's called the false consensus experiment. In this experiment, researchers asked college students whether they would be willing to walk around the campus for 30 minutes wearing a large sandwich board bearing the message, "Eat at Joe's." So what it is one of those large advertising boards. The researchers then asked the students to estimate how many other people would agree to wear the advertisement. They found that those who agreed to carry the sign believed the majority of people would also agree to carry the sign. Interestingly, those who refused felt the majority of people would refuse as well. So whether they agreed to promote Joe's or not, participants were strong in their belief that most others would have made the same choice. The results demonstrate what is known in psychology as the false consensus effect. No matter what our beliefs, opinions, or behaviours, we tend to believe that the majority of people think the same as us. I find this very interesting. It becomes quite obvious in some conversations that this occurs when, for example, you can name all the times that we've already used this in the video, so you can name all the times where you've done the dishes, and you can remember thousands and thousands of times.
Yeah.
But I can remember all the times you haven't done the dishes, and I can remember thousands and thousands of times.
Yeah.
So to you, you always do the dishes, but to me, you never do the dishes.
Yeah.
This is very much the logical version of that experiment. That's how it ties into the video. But the interesting thing about this is that it proves no matter what the experiment, whatever our belief is, we assume others believe it too. So that means, theoretically, that you can have a discussion about any topic without subject matter, and that person will believe that they are right in the majority of people's eyes.
Yeah.
It is quite daunting to think that no matter what the subject matter is, no matter what the topic is, that if someone has an opinion on something, they believe they're right in the majority of people's eyes without there even being a subject. They just assume they're right. Theoretically, this is, obviously. But, I don't know, I just find that kind of weird. How you can have a conversation about literally nothing and people would theoretically believe they're right. Let's put it in the way of, I don't want to go religion.
What, you don't want to go again, or you don't want to do it anymore?
I say that, but we're going to anyway.
Yeah.
No, we're not. Nope.
You don't want to, but it's probably one of the most biggest examples of it.
It's the easiest example to pull from,
Yeah.
is religion. And being around people who believe the same sort of things reaffirms this in your mind as well. It's an affirmation that yes, what I'm thinking is right because all these people around me also think the same thing.
Yeah.
Would you then say, for example, take someone who follows the faith of Judaism, put them with a group of Catholics, and expect their faith to then change? No, you wouldn't. But using this logic, it may occur.
Yeah, there's also to cross experiments, there's also the experiment that if 20 people said that blue is actually red, one people go, hang on, maybe blue is red, even though I firmly believe that red is red. If 20 other people say blue is red, then I'll agree that blue is red.
Yeah. So that's again where we spoke at the very start of the video that statistics.
Well, that the gymnastics of statistics.
Yeah. Statistics are generally what heavily drive people to believe in something.
Yeah.
And so even if we are 99.99% sure we're right, if 19 of 20 other people disagree with us, we will take their opinion as fact because it's majority share. That really, really reaffirms my experiment. Now, with that being said, do you think you can change the outcome of an experiment before it happens?
I don't know. Do you reckon it could? We might. There might be. I think you can. Could you?
I don't know, Izaak. Why don't we find out? In our third social experiment, the Hawthorne effect. Alright, so our third social experiment is called the Hawthorne effect. The Hawthorne effect came from a 1955 study conducted by Henry Landstetter. Who cares? The original purpose of the experiment was to study the effects of physical conditioning on productivity. 2 groups of workers in the Hawthorne factory were used as guinea pigs. One day, the lighting in the work area for one of the groups was improved dramatically, while the other group's lighting remained unchanged. The researchers were surprised to find that the productivity of the highly illuminated workers increased much more than the control group, that being the group where the lighting didn't change. The employees' working conditions were changed in other ways too, given their hours, rest breaks, and so forth. And in all cases, their productivity improved when a change was made. Indeed, their productivity even improved when the lights were dimmed again. By the time everything had been returned to the way it was before the changes had begun, productivity at the factory was at its highest. Absenteeism had plummeted in extension. The experimenters concluded that it was not the changes in physical conditions that were affecting the workers' productivity. Rather, it was the fact that someone was actually concerned about their workplace and was observing them. The workers felt important because they were pleased to be singled out and increased productivity as a result. This effect is a simple premise that the human subjects in an experiment changed their behaviour simply because they were being studied.
Which begs the question, does that mean every experiment is a false answer to it?
And thank you for joining us once again on the hashtag Wireless Family Podcast. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. We have posed a very pointy question for you and we want to know your answers. Izaak, it has been a pleasure to have you on once again.
That's all right, mate. Thank you for having me again.
I'm sure we will be back on in another 2 months' time for another Wireless Family Podcast. But in the meantime, peace.